within shaking hand distance of each other, but reportedly the deep freeze between the two countries has not been broken. Why is that? We'll have an exclusive interview with Bilawal Bhutto Zardari in a moment from now. But first, as always, it's time for the 9 headlines at 9 tonight. On the show, no handshake between India and Pakistani foreign ministers at the SCO meeting. Dr. Jaishankar, External Affairs Minister, says Bilawal Bhutto Zardari was called out for being a promoter and spokesperson of the terrorism industry. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Bhutto Zardari admits India's concerns on terrorism are genuine, remains silent on the presence of the likes of Dawood Ibrahim and Masood Azhar in Pakistan, says ready to withdraw troops from POK if India does so from the Kashmir Valley, blames removal of Article 370 for the freeze between the two countries in an exclusive interview to India Today. 5 Indian Army Special Forces commandos killed in action during an encounter in J&K. Massive search operation launched to hunt down the terrorists. Prime Minister Narendra Modi backs the controversial film The Kerala Story at a rally in Karnataka, claims the movie exposes a terror plot in Karnataka, accuses the Congress of shielding terrorists. Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge hits out Prime Minister Modi's Bajrang Bali campaign, tells India Today he has built 82 Hanuman temples in his constituency. Sharad Pawar returns as NCP chief after a party panel rejects his resignation. Pawar's nephew Ajit Pawar skips the press meet held by the NCP to announce the decision. Manipur remains on the edge after violence between two tribal communities. Army deployed to maintain peace, thousands evacuated. Wrestlers continue their protest against Wrestling Federation of India chief Brijbhushan Saran Singh. The ad hoc committee set by the IOA takes control of the WFI, will oversee elections. Napoli win the Italian Serie A title, their first in 33 years. Years after Maradona left the club, the city erupts in celebrations. But our top story tonight, what we've seen today is a face-off between India and Pakistan once again, this time in Goa at the Shanghai Cooperation Organisation meet. The External Affairs Minister of the country, Dr. Jaishankar, today hit at Pakistan, claiming, without naming Pakistan, that this was the country that was responsible for cross-border terrorism when the rest of the world was fighting terror. Mr. Jaishankar went later on to claim that the Pakistani foreign minister, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, was being accused by him of being a promoter and a spokesperson of terrorism. Listen in first to what Dr. Jaishankar had to say, and then we'll come to an exclusive interview.
As a foreign minister of an SCO member state, Mr. Bhutto Zardari was treated accordingly. As a promoter, justifier, and I'm sorry to say spokesperson of a terrorism industry, which is the mainstay of Pakistan, his positions were called out and they were countered, including at the SCO meeting itself. So let me come to the specifics. On the China-Pakistan economic corridor, this so-called corridor, I think it was made very clear, not once but twice in the SCO meeting, that connectivity is good for progress. But connectivity cannot violate the territorial integrity and sovereignty of states. So this has been our long-standing position. Nobody should have any doubt about it. And I assure you, those who are in the room today had no doubt about it. I made sure of that. Regarding आपका दूसरा जो था वो G20 के बारे में था. Now, you know, I don't think there is a G20 issue to debate with anybody. Certainly not with a country which is nothing to do with the G20. I mean, Jammu and Kashmir was, is, will always be a part of India. And the G20 meetings are held in all the Indian states and union territories, so it is completely natural that it is held there. जो आपका जो दूसरा सवाल जो था कि from what I understood that India and Pakistan should sit together. You know, victims of terrorism do not sit together with perpetrators of terrorism to discuss terrorism. Victims of terrorism defend themselves, counter acts of terrorism, they call it out, they delegitimize it, and that is exactly what is happening. So to come here and preach these hypocritical words as though we are on the same boat, I mean, they are committing acts of terrorism. And, you know, I don't want to jump the gun on what happened today, but I think we're all feeling equally outraged.
Okay, you've heard from the External Affairs Minister, but what of the Pakistani side? Bilawal Bhutto Zardari is the first foreign minister to visit from Pakistan in 12 years. He comes at a time when relations between the two countries are in deep freeze after the Pulwama attack of 2019. Terror cannot coexist with talks has been India's mantra. How do the Pakistanis respond? In a no-holds-barred interview, I raised all the questions with Bhutto Zardari, including the fact that Dawood Ibrahim lives in the same colony where the Bhuttos have lived for years, Clifton in Karachi. So what's the road ahead? How do the Pakistanis respond? Listen in to this exclusive with Bhutto Zardari. Hello and welcome to this India Today special, where we are joined by a very special guest. Joining me is the Pakistani Foreign Minister, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, who is here in Goa for the two-day Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting that has just concluded. Appreciate your joining us here, Mr. Bhutto Zardari. Welcome to Goa, welcome to India. You're the first foreign minister from Pakistan to be in India in 12 years. But it appears that your visit has not been able to break the ice between India and Pakistan. From what we gather, no conversation with our minister, Dr. Jaishankar, unconfirmed reports of a handshake, and little progress made in breaking the ice. Am I right to say nothing has really been achieved by you being in India?
First of all, thank you so much for having me, obviously here in Goa, but particularly on your show, India Today. I like the opportunity to speak through you to the Indian people. As far as the success of my visit, well, the aim of my visit was to attend the SCO, of which Pakistan is a member, and to that end my visit has been successful. As far as Pakistan's position on bilateral relations with India or any meaningful engagement or dialogue with our Indian counterparts, our position remains unchanged. And that is that until India reviews the actions it took on August 5th, 2019, Pakistan is not in a position to engage bilaterally with India.
No, that's your unchanged position. Our position is equally firm. Terror and talks don't go together. And until Pakistan is seen to actively do enough to stop cross-border terrorism, to sponsor terror outfits like the Jaish and Lashkar, we can't talk with Pakistan. So it seems, therefore, that the two countries are in, as I said, a deep freeze. How do you respond to India's position? You cannot have terror and talks coexist.
So as far as India's position is concerned, terrorism isn't anything new. It's an old challenge, and despite having to face this challenge, we have had on and off talks. So as far as being a consistent position, I don't quite know how consistent it is. As far as the issue of terrorism, Pakistan wants to deal with terrorism not because India says so or the Indian government said so, but because we want to end this menace. It has caused the largest number of casualties amongst any of the SCO nations present here today. Pakistan has suffered the most casualties. I myself stand here before you today, a victim of terrorism. So Pakistan and myself are wholly committed to combating this menace. As far as accusations are concerned, we are ready and willing to engage and address any concerns that India might have, but India would also have to address our concerns. India would have to explain what Kulbhushan Yadav, not a non-state actor, a state actor, a Navy commander, was doing in Pakistan, carrying out terrorist attacks on Pakistan soil. Does that not come under border terrorism.
Can I just stop you, Mr. Foreign Minister,
if you allow me to complete,
yes.
and then
sure.
of course that's one such complaint. Then of course we all know the incident of Samjhauta Express, where we are yet to see justice. The Lahore incident, terror attack that I presented the dossier before the United Nations. All those questions need to be answered.
You know, I can go on and give you a long list of Pakistani involvement in terror attacks that dates back to the Mumbai blasts of 1993, through what happened in our parliament, through Pathankot, through Pulwama, through Uri, even to Poonch 3 weeks ago. The fact is, the evidence that Pakistan provides, whether it's about a Kulbhushan Jadhav, whether it's about Lahore the terror attack, has not been backed by international agencies. In the case of Pakistan, we've seen Mr. Bhutto Zardari. The fact is that
such a senior,
let's be very clear, that this is backed by credible evidence.
I see. Would you allow me to respond, or would you continue?
No, these are credible evidence.
Sure.
I was in Clifton where you live, and Dawood Ibrahim, responsible for the attacks of 93, still continues to live there. Hafiz Saeed, no action, credible action taken for 2611. Masood Azhar for Parliament, for Pulwama. So we can give you a long list of evidence.
The point is, while you claim to have a long list, you refuse to accept that Pakistan has any legitimate concerns. For example, you were saying that the fact that we've caught Kulbhushan Jadhav, we can show him to you. The fact that he was a Navy commander in the Indian Army is not a legitimate accusation. Then who is India to defend in Pakistani courts? Who is this man, Kulbhushan Jadhav?
Who is Ajmal Kasam?
I'm not denying there's a Mumbai trial ongoing within Pakistan. The reason that trial has not progressed is because India is refusing to produce the witnesses necessary for us to take that case forward. If you compare that with the Samjhauta Express attack, over there everyone was acquitted.
We've sent you voluminous evidence of 2611, Mr. Foreign Minister.
I'm not doubting that you've sent. I'm not doubting that you've sent evidence.
You want to live in denial. This is the problem.
This is not denial. This is the problem. The problem is I'm being very clear with you. I'm speaking with facts, and I'm speaking rationally and unemotionally. But you are getting quite hyper. And I would like to suggest that if we are to...
I lost friends, sir, in 2611, with due regards, perhaps. Sir, just as you said today, in fact, in your speech, that your mother died in an assassination by a terrorist.
If you lost friends at the Mumbai attack, you too would like to see the conclusion of the Mumbai trial.
Yes.
So perhaps you will take it up with the government in India that in order to conclude the Mumbai trial, India should consider sending the witnesses necessary in a court of law. We have a very similar legal system in India and Pakistan.
We provided you voluminous evidence,
sir, you can provide as many pieces of paper as you would like, but as your legal system works, so does mine. And in your legal system, along with those pieces of paper, you have to provide witnesses in order for a case to go forward. So until we have that sort of cooperation from the Indian side, this case cannot conclude. Now that I have shared with you my position on the Mumbai case that is sub judice and ongoing, could you perhaps enlighten me that on the Samjhauta attack that took place in 2007, where Pakistanis lost their lives, why it is that India has been unable to hold anybody accountable for that terrorist incident on Indian soil that resulted in Pakistani lives lost?
Sir, the fact is, India has prosecuted all its terror cases under the rule of law. We even gave Ajmal Kasam, who was caught in a terror attack, the due process of law. But let me come to your response. Today, at the SCO, you said, let's collectively eradicate the menace of terrorism. Let's not get caught up in weaponizing terrorism for diplomatic point scoring. With due regard, sir, when you say that, isn't it the responsibility of Pakistan, which globally has found itself in the corner for having sponsored terror, to first stop allowing its soil to be used for terror activities against India? Somewhere you've got to start. Otherwise, your words will sound hollow, with all due regard, Mr. Minister.
But Sir, our words or our track record speaks for itself. We are the only country on the planet that has not completed one, but 2 financial action task force objectives, one on counter terror financing and one on money laundering. As far as the issue of terrorism is concerned, the numbers speak for themselves. You can take out the data between sort of 2006 up until 2014, Pakistan was in a very difficult situation vis-a-vis the activities of terrorists. We were facing terrorist attacks almost every other week, but precisely because the whole of the Pakistani state, across the political spectrum, sat together, came up with the necessary consensus that resulted in operations in South Waziristan, then in North Waziristan, and a national action plan, we managed to break the back of these terrorists. And unfortunately, you're caught in an old, stale perception about where Pakistan is on this issue. And I believe it would be more constructive if we engage on these topics, because I am saying this is a genuine issue for me. I understand that this is a genuine issue for India. I'm not denying the legitimacy of this concern. I'm just suggesting the way that you're engaging in trying to resolve this concern is not necessarily the most productive.
You're saying have an open dialogue. You will express your concerns, we will express your concerns, because today you argued that you, in your speech, that you felt the pain of terror because you lost your mother to an assassination by a terrorist. You then went on to say we must stop conflating non-state actors with state actors. But for that, sir, the state must act, Mr. Bhutto Zardari, in a non-partisan fashion against all terror. Absolutely. You can't sponsor terror directed against India and then fight terror within Pakistan or across the Durand with Afghanistan. Do you agree that, one man's terrorist cannot be another man's freedom fighter?
And that's our position. That's what I want you to do. I want you to break this fiction that has been fed to you, that we have a different perspective on this issue. I believe that this line of argument, this wolf whistling around the world terrorism, which is ultimately an Islamophobic wolf whistle, not only to whip up Hindu sentiment at home here in India, but also to browbeat Pakistan. That might be a good electioneering strategy for some, but it's certainly not an effective counter-terrorism strategy. What I'm trying to explain to you, that with better coordination, and I absolutely agree that not only us, but the international community needs to coordinate better vis-a-vis this topic, we can achieve far more than we have today. Pakistan has achieved in our fight against terrorism across the board. This doesn't serve our purpose, neither does it serve your purpose.
Why do groups like the Jaish and Lashkar continue to operate from terror camps within Pakistan? Show the world credible action. I mentioned Dawood Ibrahim, sir, because the fact is he lives in Clifton, which is where you live, and the fact is he's lived there since 1993 when the Mumbai blast took place. Act against him, hand him over to India, and maybe that will be the kind of gesture that breaks this frozen peace.
So, but the frozen peace is a result of the actions of the 5th August 2019, where India unilaterally violated not only international law, not only UN Security Council resolutions, but also bilateral agreements between India and Pakistan. If we are to have any engagement, if we are to have any dialogue, ultimately, presumably, that will lead to some sort of documentation, some sort of written agreement. And what trust can India and Pakistan have on India's commitment to bilateral agreements or even multilateral agreements? We've seen that they've treated, whether it is our bilateral arrangements or United Nations Security Council resolutions, is nothing less than a piece of paper.
The fact is, what happened in August 2019 is an Indian internal issue. Jammu and Kashmir is an integral part of this country.
You're an Oxford-educated individual.
Let's be very clear.
You know the position of international law.
You know
United Nations Security Council resolutions.
So that's the third time you mentioned UN Security Council resolution. Those resolutions also call for Pakistani army to withdraw from POK, from Gilgit-Baltistan. Are you willing to do that?
I obviously, when I say abide by the UN Security Council resolutions, that means I too am ready to abide by by the Security
So you would
Council
withdraw from what we call Pakistan-occupied Kashmir?
I too would be willing to abide by the United Nations Security Council resolutions. What I wonder is, what confuses me, is why the largest democracy in the world, a country where if the government, I'm not sure about the government, but the people value being a democracy. Why? Why on earth would they be scared of a plebiscite or a referendum or the people of Kashmir deciding their own fate?
Are you willing to, therefore, based on what you've just said, withdraw Pakistani army from POK, Gilgit-Baltistan, as per the UN resolution?
So
because that is also part of the UN resolutions, right at the very top.
I'm not denying, I'm unlike you. I'm not choosing to read only one line of the United Nations Security Council resolution, but see it in its entirety. I'm not suggesting unilateral action by Pakistan. Unilateral action is what you did on August 5th, 2019 in Kashmir. Unilateral action, violation of our bilateral agreements and international agreements.
You know, Mr. Bhutto, the fact is, and this brief conversation already so far has revealed the huge trust deficit that exists.
No, there's a fact deficit.
No, just a minute, sir. Prime Minister
Modi...
There's
a fact deficit.
No, Prime Minister
Information deficit.
Right, Prime Minister Modi came to power in 2014. The first act was...
to where?
Came to power in India in 2014, sure. The Prime Minister invited Nawaz Sharif to his swearing in. Mr. Sharif came. He was then in Pakistan, came impromptu, met Mr. Sharif in December 2015. What happens a few weeks later? Pathankot, a terror attack. How do you build trust when we've seen it happen with the Lahore Bus Yatra, was followed by Kargil? There is no trust because Pakistan has not done enough to ensure trust. Tali do haath se bachti hai.
Sir, tali exactly do haath se bachti hai. तो अगर आप कह रहे हो हुकूमत भारत का हुकूमत शर्म शेख में मानता है कि हम भारत बलोचिस्तान में इन्वॉल्व हैं, पाकिस्तान के खिलाफ के फोर्सेस को सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं बलोचिस्तान में, फिर उसके बाद
No, Pakistan, India didn't admit that at Sharm el-Sheikh.
Again, another history lesson, that's a separate topic. And then उसके बाद उसके सपूत के तौर पे हम एक कुलभूषण यादव, एक इंडियन सिटीजन जो इंडिया का नेवी कमांडर है, वो पाकिस्तान में पकड़ा जाता है, तो क्या this is a state actor? Do you not see a difference between a state actor and a non-state actor?
No, I don't see the difference when the non-state actors are actively sponsored by the state actors.
So why would state actors sponsor non-state actors to cause the largest number of casualties in our own country?
Because they do it when it is directed against India. You act against terror when it involves your own citizens, but not when it involves Indians.
I think that is true for you, which is not true for us.
You know, your own belligerent comments in a way at times on Prime Minister Modi, Mr. Foreign Minister, have also not helped. It seems that when it comes to Mr. Modi specifically and India in general, Pakistan leaders want to cater to your own domestic gallery. You've made the kind of comments that make it almost difficult, if not impossible, to see how this trust deficit is bridged.
So first of all, I think if you assess the domestic politics of both countries, it is in India where Pakistan plays a larger role in your elections, whereas India does not actually feature in our elections. As far as politicking is concerned, we see it from the Pakistani perspective that every time there is an election in India, be it regional elections or national elections, there is a so-called terrorist attack that is exploited for electoral gains. We have no problem with any individual, and our words never intended to cause any effect. Those words were not my words.
They were your words?
No,
you spoke them?
Yes, but who was I quoting? I was quoting the Indian citizens. Anyway, I don't want to rehash a conversation that has already happened or quote a BBC documentary. We can have issue with the choice of words that anybody uses, but everybody knows that neither politics is personal nor diplomacy is personal. The question before the people of India or the government of India is, do you want to create an environment that is conducive to talks? Do you want to implement your own stated foreign policy agenda, which is neighbors first? And if India's foreign policy's motto is neighbors first, then they have to do some sort of engagement with one of their neighbors.
India's foreign policy wants our neighbors to be good neighbors. They want our neighbors to be neighbors who will not promote violence, who will not target Indian citizens. That's all that they want. We want Pakistan to show and prove with credible evidence that they have stopped sponsoring terror activities, and we can then have a normal relationship, which we all want. At the moment, there's no trade, there's no, there are no transport links, visas are difficult to get. We want to have a better relationship, but you've got to make that effort. You've got to do more.
So
the world wants you to do more.
We're working for ourselves, not for you, to deal with this issue. And it is an issue of serious concern. If we're going to turn terrorism into a political point, whether it is for domestic politics or geopolitics, then we will not be able to resolve this issue. And frankly, at the moment, this issue has become far more complicated since the fall of Kabul. The manner in which various terrorist organizations that are a threat to me, that are a threat to you, that are a threat to many other countries, are able to coordinate and conduct themselves today was not the case a year ago. At the moment, the fallout of that is being borne by Afghanistan and Pakistan. As I said in my speech today, we may be the first to be affected, but we will most certainly won't be the last. And despite everybody's emotions, despite what may have happened in the past, what I'm suggesting is we must work together to ensure that the inevitable nightmare scenarios don't develop.
So you're saying you want to look ahead, you don't want to look in the past, because you know Hillary Clinton and others have said when you raise snakes in your backyard, they will come one day to sting you.
So I'm not suggesting ignore the past. As a history student, I understand it's very important to understand the past. What I'm suggesting to you is that at the moment, we have a very grave security concern developing in our neighborhood, very relevant to the SCO, that will make us forget all terrorist incidents of the past.
Created by Pakistan, with due regard, sir. These groups were sponsored in the 1980s by Pakistan.
These groups, some groups, not all groups, were sponsored by the United States, not by Pakistan, not by the people of Pakistan. It was a dictator's policy, but obviously facts don't matter to you. What I'm trying to suggest is that we have had issues in the past. They've caused concern
Facts
for
matter
Pakistan.
to me, sir, with due regard.
I'm sure. They may also, they matter to India, they matter to Pakistan. What I'm trying to convey to you is, given the fall of Kabul, there is a potential for a significant increase in terrorist activity. It requires coordination regionally, internationally. And unfortunately, what we see today is a hyper-partisan, hyper-polarized international relations geopolitical environment, where it's not easy to find that common ground. And what my proposal was today...
Sir, created by, in a way, I repeat, Pakistan. You talked today, lament about the fall of Kabul. The groups, the Taliban-linked groups were all sponsored by the ISI network. Why you know, let's not kid us, let's not live in denial.
It's very easy and it's very unfortunate, because when hate drives the entire conversation, when someone's taught that just because you're a Pakistani, everything you do is wrong, or just because you are a Muslim, everything you do is wrong, or you are at fault for everything, it's very easy to stop critical minds from thinking. And when critical mind stops thinking, then we end up being unable to solve problems. And I believe that's where we find ourselves. I don't feel it is that I have a need to justify, because I risk my life every day in my own country to deal with the issues of extremism, of violent extremism. And you might get some sort of satisfaction by relishing in the accusation that somehow Pakistan is to blame for global terrorism. What I'm trying to suggest to you, that we have to work together, whether it's Pakistan or India or the other members within the SCO, if we truly want to solve this issue. Now, I truly do want to solve this issue, which is why tomorrow in Pakistan I'm going to have a trilateral meeting with the Afghan interim foreign minister and the Chinese foreign minister, because I'm going to work together with serious people, with rational people, to try and resolve what is a pressing issue for this region.
You know, it's very interesting. You mentioned hatred and extremism just now, a moment ago. You've been quoted in the past of saying you're very worried about the condition of Muslims in India, that Hindutva is leading to the persecution of Muslims, was a quote that you made. I can turn around very easily and say, what about the condition of Hindus, of Sikhs, of Christians, of Ahmadiyas? We've had Shias being killed only yesterday by Sunnis in your country. I mean, I can give you a long list of forcible conversions, of temples being targeted. I mean, Mr. Foreign Minister, surely the condition of minorities in your own country should worry you far more.
Sir,
Given that a percentage of Hindus, Christians have actually gone down to below 1%, shouldn't that be your worry as a politician of Pakistan?
As a politician of Pakistan, within my own domestic politics, absolutely, I'm a champion, not only for minority rights, but for interfaith harmony. My party, the Pakistan People's Party, is the only one actually who has directly elected both provincial and national members of parliaments who are from our Hindu minority. And unfortunately, the state of Indian politics today is such that neither in your upper house nor in your lower house is there a single Muslim member of the BJP. And I think that that speaks volumes for the country, who has the largest Muslim minority on the planet living within its borders. My concern is not isolated to India or to Pakistan, actually. I believe this is a phenomenon we're seeing the world over.
So the population of Muslims, ironically, in India has grown in recent times, while in Pakistan the population of Hindus has declined, because there is forcible conversion. There have been attacks on temples. I can give you the long list. If you are saying you and your party is committed to interfaith harmony, you must ensure that this doesn't happen. You come from Sindh, you must ensure it doesn't happen. I mean, that, you see, again, it's the proof of the pudding, sir, lies in the eating.
So evil exists everywhere in the world. The question is, how do you respond to it? In my province or in my country, if such an incident takes place, I will be on the side of the victim. I will try, and the life is unfair, our institutions and system is unfair. There are times where I will not be successful. But my attempt will be, my want will be, my niyat will be that I would want to try and resolve an issue in an amicable way for the victim of the
Can you give us that assurance?
I do it every day if you just Googled or looked. But the point is, can you say the same for what happened in Gujarat? Was the government at the time actively involved in trying to save lives, or was it trying to do something else? And I think that's the fundamental difference. It's not like there's no hate.
We've
in
gone
America,
through a rule of
it doesn't
law process, sir, with due regard for Gujarat.
Sir, I haven't finished my comment, and I understand that you're emotional. So I'm trying to suggest that hate has no borders. You have hate incidences and with increasing frequency all over the world, but they happen in Pakistan, they happen in India, they happen in Europe, they happen in America. The difference is how we would like to see responsible states react to that. And the India that I was taught about growing up, the India that my mother raised me explaining how this India was like, I was told that India was a secular democracy. And I, growing up now as a young adult, see a very different India. If I comment on that from time to time, I don't mean that as a personal slight to anyone. I don't mean that as in order to be offensive to anyone. And it doesn't mean that I'm not cognizant of the challenges within my country. In fact, I actively attempt, whether it's through legislation or pushing the police or provincial authorities, to try and address such issues.
Let me assure you, we have a strong civil society, and we have a robust Supreme Court that does address all the concerns that you have. We can have differing perspectives of it, but that's my perspective.
Can I ask you, in the case of the gang rape of Muslim women in Gujarat during the 2002 riots, who were recently pardoned by your government,
yes,
what sort of message do you think that sends to the Muslims everywhere?
May I also tell you, sir, that there are a number of Indian citizens who've gone to the Supreme Court and demanded that the individuals who spent 15 years and more in jail, they continue to remain in jail for life. So we have a robust civil society.
I'm as do we in Pakistan. But what I'm suggesting to you, that if I had even, and I would never even think of, this would never even cross my mind, but in the context of such sort of religiously sectarian, whatever you want to call it, polarized dispute within my own country, if I had given a pardon like this, you would not let me forget it. Okay. You would not be defending me by saying that, oh, but some citizens took me to court. You would say it is wrong, and it is wrong if it happens in India, and it would be wrong if it happens in Pakistan.
I'm very clear that the rule of law must apply universally. Human rights are universal. We agree on that. But you continue, Mr. Minister, to harp on Kashmir. Is there a realization somewhere that this obsession with Kashmir over the decades has cost Pakistan economically and, dare I say, politically and diplomatically? That every time I will tell you terror and talks don't go together, you will refer to August 2019.
Do
you agree that this obsession has to end?
2019 has only been a fact since 2019.
No, but do you agree that the obsession has to end? That the obsession has to end for Pakistan to actually
I don't have an obsession, but this is a commitment that you made, that India has made to the people of Kashmir. It's a commitment that we've jointly made. And what I don't understand, this is a confident country, as a country that is proud of its success, that is proud of its democracy. What is the harm to India in abiding by the same UN Security Council resolutions that are a result of their Prime Minister going to the United Nations? What is the harm in having a plebiscite?
As I said, the plebiscite would also turn into POK,
Sure. I am happy to. I'll lead the campaign in Gilgit-Baltistan. आप जाके श्रीनगर से campaign lead करें, मगर referendum तो hold कर ले.
Okay.
राय शुमारी हो जाए, बात खत्म हो जाएगा.
Okay, but
आपके लिए, मेरे लिए, and सबसे भरकर जो कश्मीर के अवाम के लिए, because it's not मेरा obsession, it's उनका obsession, and वो generation after generation एक ही मुतालबा कर रहा है, और मेरा और उनका एक ही मुतालबा है कि राय शुमारी करके दिखाए.
You know, post 2019, actually, what we are seeing in Kashmir is certainly investments. We're seeing tourism. We're seeing a new Kashmir. So, you know, we can have again differing perspectives.
I agree with you that you are seeing a new Kashmir.
Okay.
But this new Kashmir is a violation of everything that India stands for. It is a blatant attempt to turn Muslims into a minority within their own land. Some call it an ethnic cleansing within Kashmir, the gerrymandering of districts to artificially conflate a minority into a majority. The entire Kashmiri leadership has been imprisoned. It is India, not Pakistan or Kashmir, that is running away from a referendum, that is running away from letting the people decide.
Okay, as I said, our official position remains that Kashmir is an internal matter. We will resolve it. But look at what it's done.
Why did you go to the UN if it was an internal matter?
No, I'll tell you what it's done to Pakistan. This support for cross-border terrorism. Look at
we don't support cross-border terrorism.
Okay, you will say that, we will provide you evidence, but look at your economic condition. 36% plus inflation. For just a minute, sir. Foreign exchange reserves at $3 billion, huge public debt of $233 billion. You're a country that at this moment perhaps first needs to focus domestically on the crisis that you have. You can't even look at these external realities. Do you appreciate the nature of the crisis you're facing, sir?
Absolutely. But does that mean I should ignore the injustice that is happening in Kashmir? Just because I too am facing my own problems, I'm willing to face my own problems as well. I believe my problems have nothing to do, and I have no fault with the people of Kashmir. And while we are facing difficult times, these are temporary difficult times, and I'm sure that we will rise again.
Mr. Bhutto, though you're here for an SCO summit, interestingly, the fact is there hasn't been a SARC summit, a South Asian regional summit, since 2014, since Kathmandu. Yeah. India has boycotted the idea of a summit in Pakistan since 2016. You're saying sabotage. The fact is that SARC, many believe, is being held hostage, or that's how we see it, to Pakistan's state sponsorship of terror.
I see.
Does Pakistan see a future for itself in South Asia, a future for SARC? Do you really see SARC to have any kind of future?
As far as SARC is concerned, I mean, it just shows your country's pettiness when it comes to foreign policy. And my presence here shows that Pakistan's foreign policy is completely sort of the juxtaposition to your country's foreign policy. If we don't believe that two wrongs make a right, that cutting our nose despite our face is a good foreign policy decision, which is why, despite our bilateral differences, despite our position after August 5th, 2019, I've chose to attend in person at the SCO, because India is not the only member of the SCO, if you haven't noticed. We're all equal members of this organization, and Pakistan has fantastic bilateral relations with every single other member of this organization, who sees a huge potential in the China-Pakistan economic corridor for regional integration.
Let me turn to the politics within Pakistan for a moment. Imran Khan party says you and Shahbaz Sharif have ganged up to delay elections, both provincial and general elections. Will Pakistan hold elections on time? Have you ganged up against Imran Khan?
No. We will have elections on time. Our constitutional term will end according to its constitutional limit, and elections will happen this year, either in September, October or November, as the constitution allows.
Are you running scared though of Imran Khan?
Not at all. I've beaten him in every...
He's attracting large crowds.
I attract large crowds too. But the Pakistan People's Party feels confidence about its chances against Imran Khan. We've beaten Imran Khan's party and Imran Khan himself in each and every by-election that we faced him in, whether it is before his fall or after his fall. And inshallah, when we go to the people of Pakistan for a general election, they will choose the side of sanity over this new, narrow, populist nationalism.
Do you have is there any truth that there are still back-channel talks taking place between India and Pakistan? No back-channel talks? None whatsoever? None?
No.
No. Okay. I want to ask you this. You wear the Bhutto legacy. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, your grandfather, was here for the famous Shimla Agreement, but he was also the one who spoke of a 1,000-year war with India. Your mother and Rajiv Gandhi met, and that was a historic summit at the time, and yet we had terror in Kashmir soon after. How do you, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, see your grandfather and mother's legacy, and how do you therefore view India and Pakistan in your vision?
So as far as India and Pakistan is concerned, my mother's manifesto, her politics, those were based on normalizing relations with India. This has been my party's consistent position. I mentioned August 5th and why that's complicated it for us and complicated it for even those parties within Pakistan who have long advocated for normalization of ties with India. As far as Pakistan is India is concerned, and the people of Pakistan and India are concerned, our destiny is peace. We will have a peaceful, prosperous future. My generation, I hope, will not be bogged down by history and forge our own history. I might sound naive at times. I understand that it's a very complicated task, but this is our fate. This is our destiny. It's interesting because you're moving away, in a sense, from the 1,000-year war, which your grandfather spoke about, and you've got General Asif Bajwa now saying Pakistan cannot afford a war with India. As far as my grandfather, the problem with taking out one sentence anywhere is that it's out of context. I believe that my grandfather came into power at a time when Pakistan was in crisis. We'd lost half our country, and he engaged diplomatically with India. Many within Pakistan say that he won on the negotiating table what had been lost on the battlefield, but we always were in favor of engagement. When my mother became Prime Minister of Pakistan, she was declared a security risk because she dared to believe in peace over war. And I saw my father try. It was the first time in the longest, since the 1950s or whenever, I can't even tell you since when, that when my father was in power, that we unilaterally restored trade ties with India. At the moment, we face a whole host of challenges. Our bilateral ties are frozen for their own reasons, but globally also we're facing enormous challenges. The economic crisis, while acute in Pakistan, is being felt everywhere. We are all suffering the impacts of the COVID pandemic. It's affecting India, it's affecting Pakistan, it's affecting the people in Europe, in America. There's massive inflation. Climate shocks are so severe. What happened in Pakistan last year was out of some sort of apocalyptic movie. Imagine, I said in my speech, a third of the landmass of India underwater. What would that look like? If 1 in 7 Indians were turned into climate refugees overnight, what would that number be? Because that's what happened to us last year. And to top that all off, we have issues like terrorism, the fall of Kabul and the complexities that has caused, and which is why we need forums like the SCO, where despite having bilateral issues and differences and some problems that has made bilateral engagement difficult, we have forums like the SCO where we can work together, and that is ultimately the only way to address these problems.
Your team is asking me to wind up. I'm going to ask you 2 very small questions. One, am I talking to a future Prime Minister of Pakistan? Because your critics call you an intern foreign minister. Imran Khan is dismissive of you as a
dynast. I love it when you're underestimated. Imran Khan used to mock me as a child when he was Prime Minister, but then I came up with the no confidence strategy that ultimately led him to being walked out of office. So I relish in the idea that my opponents underestimate me because they think I'm inexperienced. It is as a result of that underestimation that I have managed to outperform, both politically, and I don't like to say so myself, but I'd like to think that impartial observers would agree, also diplomatically in my short year as Pakistan's foreign minister.
We'll see that in the general election, Mr. Foreign Minister, but I must ask you in conclusion, did you have a handshake with Dr. Jaishankar or not?
In all our unofficial engagements, we always shake hands when we meet.
So you shook hands?
Of course. And we had a dinner conversation amongst a whole host of other foreign ministers, as one does at these sorts of events. We didn't hold a bilateral engagement.
We'll wait and see where, therefore, that handshake goes in the future. Bhutto Zardari still not being able to tell us why is Pakistan unwilling, for example, to extradite Dawood Ibrahim. Where is Masood Azhar? Why are they being sheltered in Pakistan? Therefore, I'm joined by Geeta Mohan, our diplomatic affairs editor, who's been covering the SCO. It's typically, for a meeting which had 8 countries there, it's ended up India, Pakistan grabbing the headlines, and very strong words used by Dr. Jaishankar, virtually accusing Bhutto Zardari of being a promoter of terrorism. Bhutto Zardari responding to us in that interview saying, we also have genuine concerns. How is this going to play out? Are we now going to not see the two countries talking to each other in a while, given the fact that Shahbaz Sharif too is supposed to come to India in July for an SCO meet?
Well, with India-Pakistan, Rajdeep, you can never say never. So I'm not going to say that they're not going to meet. But if you ask me, are they going to and when, it's going to take a long time for them to really come back on the talking table or come back on track when it comes to bringing the ties to normalcy or to what they used to be. Why do I say that? Is because the statements that were made by Dr. Jaishankar clearly are statements and responses, not just to our interview, to the statements he's made on Indian soil, on the sidelines of the SCO, but also the statement that he made in New York.
But I get a sense that both countries are playing to their domestic constituencies.
Absolutely.
You know, Bhutto Zardari has an election in October this year. India has an election a year from now. It almost seemed that until the 2024 elections are over, neither country is willing to give an inch, and in fact will only up the ante, up the rhetoric in the next 1 year.
Absolutely. You have the G20, you have the SCO, where India, Russia, China are the bigger players, and the elections in 2024. So unless and until we see a return of this party and a strong government where they can take a call on whether they need to talk to Pakistan or want to talk to Pakistan, I don't see a forward movement. But Rajdeep, the observation is correct. It's not just India. Look at Bilawal Bhutto Zardari and look at the statements that he's making. He's playing to the galleries. And there was a time in Pakistan where statements with regards to India didn't matter politically. But today, things have changed on the ground.
Okay, it's not just the India-Pakistan standoff that's grabbing the headlines. Also grabbing the headlines is Manipur, because the state remains on the edge for another day after more clashes between Meitei and Kuki tribal communities. There is a curfew now in 8 districts of Manipur. The army has been deployed to maintain peace. Over 10,000 civilians have been evacuated and more than 1,000 people have taken refuge in areas bordering of Assam. Our ground report today comes from a strife-torn Manipur.
Homes set on fire, shops vandalized, armed mobs went on a rampage. The northeast jeweled land, Manipur, is rocked by violence.
Communal tension has erupted in various places in Manipur after the Solidarity March by Assam on 3rd of May. Protesters have burned down houses, churches, religious places, children's homes, even schools are not spared.
The unrest broke out during a protest march on Wednesday. thousands of tribal people opposed the demand by the state's Meitei community for the scheduled tribe status. The protesters feared such a categorization for the Meiteis will cut into the share of benefits reserved for tribal communities.
The security force, the Indian Army is helping us. They keep us in good, safe and sound. That's a great thing for us. We are safe right now. There's a rumors that someone can evacuate from this place, so there's no certainty. So as long as the army is here with us, so I think we're not worried.
Curfews imposed, mobile internet services suspended, and the army carried out flag marches in violence-hit areas. While the Indian Air Force has been roped in for evacuation of all residents in violence-hit areas, hundreds have sought refuge in neighbouring Assam, with the Chief Minister assuring full support to affected families. Manipur Chief Minister N. Biren Singh appealed for calm as he blamed the violence on misunderstanding between communities.
These accidents are a result of prevailing misunderstanding between two sections of our society. The state government is seized of the developments and taking all steps to control the law and order situation. In this hour, I appeal to one and all to maintain peace and harmony in your respective areas.
Union Home Minister Amit Shah spoke to the Manipur Chief Minister and promised full central assistance to restore peace in the northeastern state. Security forces, meanwhile, evacuated thousands of people caught in the violence. Of Manipur's 16 districts, the Meitei Hindu community dominates 5. The hill districts dominated mostly by Christian, Naga and Kuki tribes. On April 20th, the Manipur High Court directed the state government to consider within 4 weeks the request of the Meitei community to be included in the scheduled tribes list. Violence spiraled during the protest march by the Kukis against any move to categorize the Meiteis as a scheduled tribe on Wednesday. On Thursday, the state governor issued an order to shoot protesters in extreme cases where warnings and reasonable force do not work. Bureau Report, India Today.
That's it on this News Today special. Thanks for watching. Stay well, stay safe. Jai Hind, Namaskar, Happy Budh Purnima.
What's your longer term strategy on Europe, and is there a trade-off versus focusing more on India and expanding here?